I want you to visualize something with me for a second. Just clear your mind. Imagine a blank, pristine sheet of white paper. Now take a thick brush dipped in heavy black ink and make two decisive movements. One stroke slashing down to the left, and then another stroke, starting from the middle of that one, leaning down to the right.
Right, it's the character Ren in Chinese or Hito in Japanese.
Exactly. It means person or human.
It's such a deceptive image, honestly,
Hmm.
because it looks so simple. It's just two lines.
Eh.
But in calligraphy, the balance of that is everything. If the second stroke doesn't lean with the exact right amount of weight against the first, the whole character just looks like it's falling over.
Yeah, that visual tension is exactly where we are starting today's deep dive. We are looking at a document titled States of Being. And let me tell you, this isn't some polished corporate report. It looks like a cheat sheet for reality that someone scribbled down while having a massive revelation.
It really does.
It features that exact character, the person, twice.
Mhm.
But it's surrounded by this chaotic web of words like emergence and gradients and these distinct zones of complex versus complicated.
It creates a really fascinating juxtaposition. You have this ancient minimalist symbol for humanity, and it's basically trapped inside what looks like a modern systems theory diagram. It's a complete collision of philosophy and engineering.
And that is our mission today. We are going to decode this cheat sheet. We're going to figure out what it actually means to be that little ink character leaning against the wind in a world that this document describes as a chaotic river. Because if you look closely at these notes, it isn't just about existing. It's a survival manual for functioning within chaos.
It really is. It frames the human experience not as a static thing that just happens,
Right.
but as a highly dynamic balancing act.
So let's set the stage for you. The document basically splits reality into two massive zones. You have the macro, which is the big world out there, and the micro, the work we do in here, inside ourselves. And the description of the macro environment is, well, it's intense.
Yeah, intense is a good word for it. The central metaphor they use is the river.
But look at the syntax on the page. It says, flowing constantly in the river. And the word in is fully capitalized. That's not an accident. That's a shout.
Right. It doesn't say looking at the river or standing by the river. It's total, unavoidable immersion.
That distinction changes everything about how we view our environment.
For sure. Think about it. If you are standing on a riverbank, you are an observer. You have a fixed point of reference. The ground under your feet isn't moving. But if you are in the river, you lose that fixed point entirely. You are moving, the water is moving, the debris around you is moving. It implies that there's absolutely no neutral ground. You are part of the flow whether you want to be or not.
It actually reminds me of that old Heraclitus quote, no man ever steps in the same river twice. But this source material feels way more aggressive than that. It's not just that the river changes, it's that you are actively being thrashed around by it.
Exactly. And that brings us to the descriptor right at the very top of the page. Chaotic. In systems theory, chaos isn't just messiness or disorder. It's a specific state where cause and effect are so deeply entangled that you literally cannot predict what happens next.
Right, but then right next to the word chaotic, there's this other phrase, on the clear. It almost sounds like at radio frequency, right? Like, I'm in the clear. But here, it's positioned almost like a target or a desired state of mind.
I've been thinking a lot about that specific phrasing. The clear usually implies safety or high visibility. But if you're inherently in a chaotic river, the clear can't mean the water magically stops moving.
Because you can't stop the river.
Exactly. I think it suggests a state of lucidity within the chaos itself. It's the moment you stop fighting the current and actually start reading it.
That's a slightly terrifying kind of clarity, though, because look at the next condition listed in the notes. We aren't just in a chaotic river. We are, and I quote, under emergence.
Yeah, that preposition under is doing a massive amount of heavy lifting there.
It feels incredibly oppressive. Usually we talk about things emerging from the chaos, like, oh, a new pattern emerged. But to be under emergence makes me feel like I'm standing at a construction site and they're pouring concrete directly over my head.
That's a very visceral way to put it, but it's honestly accurate to the diagram. In complexity science, emergence is what happens when thousands of simple interactions create massive, completely unpredictable patterns.
Like a stock market crash.
Right, or a viral trend on social media, or a sudden cultural shift. These things emerge from the bottom up. So to be under emergence acknowledges that as individuals, we are completely subject to these larger forces. We don't dictate reality. Reality forms above us and around us, and we just have to survive the weight of it.
Okay, so we're swimming in chaos, and reality is essentially building itself on top of us. And just to make it even more fun, the document adds another layer. It says 3 dimensions, constant gradients.
Right. A gradient is simply a slope. It's what drives movement. Heat naturally moves to cold. High pressure moves to low pressure. If the environment has constant gradients, it means you can never just float. If you stop swimming, the gradient takes you somewhere else entirely. You are constantly sliding.
This sounds exhausting. It paints a picture of a universe that is fundamentally unstable.
Or fundamentally dynamic, depending on how you look at it. It means stability itself is an illusion.
Okay, so if that's the macro environment, this chaotic, emerging, constantly sloping river, how on earth do we actually navigate it? The document points to 2 specific names as inspiration: Dave Snowden and Robert Murphy. And this is where we really get into the technical meat of today's deep dive.
Yes. Seeing Dave Snowden's name is the absolute key to unlocking this whole map. He's the creator of the Cinefin framework, which is a really famous tool for decision-making. And this document makes a very specific, very sharp distinction between 2 words we usually just use interchangeably: complex and complicated.
Which is wild, because I definitely used to think they were just synonyms. Like, a jet engine is complex, but a relationship is complicated. But here, the text specifically says we're in the complex, but on the complicated.
And that in versus on distinction is brilliant. Let's break it down for everyone. A complicated system is like that jet engine you mentioned, or a Swiss watch, or a massive spreadsheet.
It has a ton of parts.
Right. It might have a million moving parts, but there are strict rules. If you take the watch apart, you can see exactly how gear A turns gear B. If it breaks, you can bring in a specialized expert to fix it. You can stand on it, you are the operator, and the machine is just the object.
Okay, so complicated means it's ultimately solvable. It's a puzzle. You can master it if you have enough expertise.
Precisely. You have a real sense of control. But a complex system, that's a rainforest. That's the global economy. That's a teenage brain.
Or trying to understand internet culture.
Exactly. Think about the rainforest. You can't take a rainforest apart, fix a piece, and put it back together. Every single species interacts with every other species. If you remove one specific type of tree, you might change the soil pH, which kills a certain bug, which then starves a specific bird.
It cascades.
Right. You cannot stand on a rainforest and fix it like a mechanic. You are in it. You are part of the web.
That shift from being a mechanic to an ecosystem participant is huge. The document seems to be saying that we make a massive mistake when we try to be onpleckers, the complex stuff.
I would argue that is the fundamental error of modern life. We
Yeah.
try to treat our relationships or our mental health, which are highly complex, as if they are merely complicated. We try to just fix them like a broken toaster. But you can't fix a complex system. You can only probe it, sense how it reacts, and then respond to that new information.
So relating this back to the visual of the person at the start, that ink character leaning against the stroke. If you're in complexity, that leaning isn't resting, it's dynamic tension.
Exactly. If you're standing on a solid, complicated floor, you can stand perfectly straight. But if you're on a moving raft in a complex river, you have to lean. You have to constantly adjust your weight. Stability isn't a fixed position anymore. It's a continuous series of micro-corrections.
This feels like a massive pivot point in the document. We've established the macro chaos. We know we can't control the river. We know we are the complexity. So what can we actually control? This is where the document shifts entirely to the micro, and it gives us this acronym, A.B.L.E, A.B.L.E.
And notice the phrasing there again. It says working on being A.B.L.E.
Ah, so we are back to on-in.
Yes, the universe is complex, so you're in it. But the self is complicated, so you work on it. You are the machine you can actually tune.
That's empowering, but it also feels like a lot of responsibility. So let's unpack this toolkit for the listener. A.B.L.E stands for action, behavior, language, and emotions. At first glance, action and behavior sound like the exact same thing to me. Why split them up?
It's really a matter of scale and pattern. Action is the immediate impulse. It's the single stroke you take in the water. It's the email you send right this second. It's very immediate and kinetic.
Okay, so action is the what?
Right. Behavior is the how and the how often. It's the pattern of those actions over time. Are you swimming rhythmically, or are you just thrashing around? In a complex system, your behavior is what establishes trust.
Because people can predict it.
Exactly. If your actions are erratic, the system, meaning the people around you, reacts with chaos. But if your behavior is consistent, you actually create a little pocket of stability within the river.
I see. So I can take a objectively good action but still have bad behavior overall if I'm totally inconsistent. That makes sense. Now, let's talk about language, the L in the acronym. This one feels a bit academic, maybe. Like, why is language on a core survival checklist?
I'd actually argue this might be the most critical one of the four. Remember earlier we talked about being under emergence. We're seeing things form in real time all around us. We have to name them to understand them. The language you use literally frames your reality. This is the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis in action. It's the idea that the words we know determine the thoughts we are even capable of thinking.
Can you give me a real-world example of how that plays out?
Sure, imagine you're at work and a massive year-long project suddenly falls apart. That's the chaos. That's the macro river. If your internal language for that event is, "This is a disaster," your brain prepares for trauma. You go straight into a defensive survival mode.
You freeze up.
Right. But if your language is, "This is a reset," or "This is a pivot," your brain automatically looks for opportunity. You are looking at the exact same pile of rubble, but the language determines whether you see a grave or a foundation.
Wow. So language isn't just describing the river after the fact. It's basically choosing which pair of glasses you wear to look at the river in the first place.
Exactly. It's the primary interface between your internal mind and the external chaos.
And finally, we have E for emotions.
This is your dashboard. These are your internal sensors. Too often we think of emotions as these soft, fuzzy things that just get in the way of logic. But in this specific framework, emotions are raw data,
Like a check engine light on a car.
more like a sonar system on a submarine. If you feel anxiety, that's data telling you the gradient is too steep or the current is moving too fast. If you feel boredom, the current is too slow. If you ignore the data, if you just suppress the emotion entirely, you're essentially swimming blind. Being A.B.L.E means reading that emotional data objectively and adjusting your action.
So let's put this whole acronym into a scenario. Let's say I'm a listener, I'm at work, and the company suddenly announces a massive reorganization. Chaos, emergence. I'm in the complexity. I can't control the executives. I can't control the market.
You absolutely cannot stand on the reorganization. It's
Yeah.
too big.
So I have to turn to the micro. I work on being A.B.L.E. Let's see. A, action. I update my resume today. B, behavior. I keep showing up on time and I avoid joining the office gossip. L, language. I stop calling it the firing squad in my head and start calling it the shakeup. And E, emotions. I acknowledge that I'm feeling spared, which is just data telling me I need to gather more information about my department to feel safe.
That is perfect. You have taken a situation where you had zero agency over the macro river,
Yeah.
and you found 4 specific levers you can actually pull on the micro self. You didn't stop the river, but you ensured you wouldn't drown in it.
It totally transforms existential dread into a practical maintenance checklist. I really love that. But, there's a piece of this puzzle we haven't touched on yet, and it's arguably the most cryptic part of the entire page. Right under the 3 dimensions heading, there's this little sequence, 1.2.3, and directly below that it says A.B.C.
Ah, yes. The famous systems theory shorthand.
It feels like a secret code. The text doesn't explain it anywhere. It just sits there on the page. My very first thought was maybe it's some kind of maturity model, like level 1 is novice, level 2 is intermediate, level 3 is expert.
That's a totally valid read, but based on the context, I think it connects directly back to those constant gradients. If the macro environment has different levels of dimensions or gradients, let's call them 1, 2, and 3, then your micro response needs to match them perfectly with A, B, and C.
Meaning it's all about proportionality.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Think about Ashby's law of requisite variety. It's a cybernetics concept that basically says for a system to be stable, the number of control mechanisms has to be equal to or greater than the number of problems the system faces.
Okay, translate that cybernetics concept into river terms for me.
If the river throws a level 1 problem at you, you say a minor annoyance or a slight change of the current. Use response A, just a simple action. But if it throws a level 3 problem at you, a total chaotic breakdown, rapids, a waterfall, you absolutely need response C. You need the full A.B.L.E framework engaged, high emotional intelligence, highly nuanced language.
So the fatal mistake people make is using a level 3 response for a level 1 problem. Like completely freaking out and having an existential crisis over a spilled cup of coffee.
Yes, or the inverse of that, which is honestly worse. Using a level 1 response for a level 3 problem. Treating a massive, complex, systemic crisis like it's just a minor glitch you can brush off. That misalignment between the problem and the response is exactly where you drown. The 1, 2, 3 and ABC structure is basically a reminder to match your internal gear to the external slope you're on.
It's all about calibration. You have to read the river, the 1, 2, 3, to know which tool to pull out of your kit, the ABC.
And that ties beautifully back to the visual of the person leaning at the beginning. You lean much more when the wind is stronger. You lean less when it's calm. It's constant active calibration.
Stepping back and looking at this entire states of being document now, it's deceptively simple. It's literally just black ink on a white page. But it captures a very, very modern kind of anxiety. We really all feel like we are under emergence right now. We all feel like the world is just way too complex to fix.
We do. And the natural temptation is to try to assert control over the macro. We want to build a dam to stop the river. We
Yeah.
want to force the complicated world to just be simple again.
But this blueprint says, stop. You can't do that. You are in the complex. Your power is entirely located in the micro. It's in the working on.
It's a message of radical personal responsibility. You are not responsible for what the river does. You are solely responsible for your own buoyancy.
And for you listening to this, that is the ultimate takeaway. The next time you feel that wave of overwhelm hitting you, stop looking at the chaos of the river. Look at your internal dashboard. Check your A.B.L.E gauges. Just ask yourself, how is my language right now? What are my emotions actually telling me as data?
Because if you can manage to stabilize the macro suddenly becomes navigable. It won't be easy, but it will be navigable.
Now, before we wrap up today's deep dive, I want to leave everyone with a thought that has been nagging at me since I first saw this page. It's actually about what the document doesn't say.
The silence in the margins.
Exactly. We've spent this whole time talking about being in the complex and on the complicated. Those prepositions are very explicit. But look at the very top of the page again, the word chaotic. There is no preposition attached to it.
You're right. It doesn't say in the chaotic or on the chaotic.
So here's my question for you to mull over. If we actually master this A.B.L.E framework, if we get so incredibly good at reading the gradients, so perfect at aligning our 1, 2, 3 with our ABC, and we flow flawlessly with the river, do we just survive the chaos? Or do we eventually become the chaos?
That is a deeply dangerous thought. If you align that perfectly with chaos, are you even still human? Or are you just a force of nature at that point?
I really don't know, but looking at that character Ren one last time, that second stroke leaning perfectly into the first stroke, maybe the goal isn't to stand still at all. Maybe the true goal is to lean so perfectly that you and the river move as one continuous thing.
A flow state in its absolute most extreme form.
Something to think about the next time you feel the current pulling you. Thanks for diving deep with us today.
Swim well, everyone.
See you on the next deep dive.